Hello there, my dear friends. Welcome to another tutorial video. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a PHP API. Let's say we have a database, and inside that database, we have a table, and this is the data of that table, and we want to share this data through an API. How we can do that in PHP so anybody can fetch and use this data. To do that, first of all, let's create a folder. I call it PHP API. Open the Visual Studio Code and drag and drop your folder into the Visual Studio Code. We first have to make a connection to the database. To do that, I make a file. I call it config.php. This is our configuration file. Inside this configuration file, we start PHP, and once we have started the PHP, we have to make the connection with the database. And in this case, I'm going to use PDU. So first we make a class, and I call it connect. And we have to extend this class to PDU. Extend is used to drive a class through another class. And after that, inside this class, we have to make a construct. So it is a public function, and we use construct. And inside this function, we make the connection. To do that, first we say what is the parents. So we use the parent, and we use the construct, and now we have to define the database type, and this is MySQL database, so we write MySQL, then the host, and this is your host. In our case, we use XAMPP, and as you know, the XAMPP is a local host, so this is our host. So we type local host. After that, we have to define the DB name or your database name, and our database name is test. If your database is something else, you have to use that name. If you want to create a database, it's very easy. You just go to your server, and from here click on database, and you can easily create a database in here. And you just put your database name, whatever you put here, and create. Your database will be created just like this one. If you want to create a table, you just write your table name with number of columns and create that one. But in this case, we already have a database called test, so we use the name of that database here, test. Okay, once we have done that, now we have to define our database username. In my case, it is root. If you use database inside the host, you have to check your configuration on your cPanel to find out. And the local host, that's go to the server and go to the users. There you go. This is my username, root. And then the password. After that, we have to define the password. In this case, I don't have any password, so we put it empty. And what else we need is put a comma. The second thing we need is we have to make an array. Inside our array, we use PDU and our MySQL attr for the attribute. We use the attribute of initiate to initiate our PDU, initiate comment, and we set this one to set names UTF-8. So our everything will be on the UTF-8 format. And this is completed. Now we have to put some PDU attributes to check for errors, and if the user is not available, if there is any error, so PDU will output an error. To do that, this is very easy. We use this, and this is equal to set attribute, something like this, yes. And in this case, we use PDU attr err mode, error mode, comma PDU. This is the default thing. Okay, you can also use search Google to use this thing. You can just copy paste this one. You don't need to remember this thing because it's not necessary to remind these things. exception. This is one attribute, and there's also one more attribute, and that is okay. So we use this one, the exact same thing, and we use PDU ETTR EMULATE and PREPARES, and set this one to false. You don't need to remember these two lines, okay? This is something default from the PDU. You can just copy paste that one. And this is our connection. We save, and let's open this file to see if there's an error or not. Okay, we can't test it now because we didn't use this class, but anyway, I go to my API folder. This is my PHP API, and this is my config folder, and it's working. Okay, once we have created a database connection, now it's time to create our API. So I make another file, I call it API. This is where it output the API data. So how we can do that? Once again, we start our PHP, and we have to include our configuration file to this file, and that's very easy. We use require once, and then we use dir, something like this, to we have to make sure we are inside this directory. And after that, we put our configuration file config.php, and this will include this file to this file. Okay, after that, we have to create a class. I make a class and I call it API, and inside this class I make a function, and I call it whatever you like. I call it select, because it select the data for us. And now we have to make a connection with the database. And that's very easy. I make a variable, I call it db, and this is equal to new. We make it as an object when we use the connect object. And if you don't know where this connect come from, this is the class name, okay, the connect, and we use it here as a object. After that, we make another variable, I call it data, and this is equal to, we use this db, now it acts as an object, db, and from this db we have to prepare it. Okay, prepare, we have to prepare this one, and inside this prepare you put your SQL query. So what we want in this case, I want to select everything from my table name, and my table name is employees. Okay, this is my table name, so I put that name here, and I want to order everything by ID, order by ID, and this is my ID. Okay, I want to order everything by ID. And so once we have done that, we have to execute this command. Okay, so we use data. Now data acts as an object, and we want to execute this one, and that's really easy. Just type execute, and this will execute this query. But because we have multiple files, we have to fetch everything, and for that case we use while. Okay, we use while, and inside this parentheses we type what we want to fetch. I make another variable here, I call it, for example, output data. Okay, output data, and this output data is equal to, we select this data, this object, data object, now it's executed. Okay, and all we need to do is to fetch it. How you can do that is really easy, fetch, and that's it. And inside this parenthesis you have to tell the PDU to fetch for us, and in this case we use fetch assoc. So to call PDU, you just write PDU, and after that just say fetch, and the type of fetch, in this case, which is fetch assoc. And inside the while loop we have to write, and now we can loop through everything. To loop everything we have to create an array. Okay, we have to create an array. So let's make an array. And here I call it maybe users, because this is information of users. You can call it whatever you like. And I say this is an array. We want to put everything from this table inside an array, and that array is called users. This equal to array. Okay, how you can do that? How you can put everything, how you can fetch everything and put it inside this users array? That's really easy. Just type users, and this will mean this is an array. And if you know, every array have a key, so we have to make a key for this array, and that should be specific. It shouldn't be like it don't repeat. The key should be different for every element. So because in our table the ID is different for everyone, the ID is different. We can use that. You can use the unique ID, you can use email, but ID is something which is always different. So we use ID as a key for this array. And normally you just say like this, you use output, and inside this one put your table name, your column name, and you can say ID, and it will fetch all of ID for you. And we use this technique, and we cut this one and put it here, so this will act as a key for our array. Okay, that's really easy. And this array is equal to another array is inside this array. Okay, so what is inside this other array? That is the data which our users can use it through this API. So I want to output everything from this table to the API, so users can use anything from this table through the API. So first of all, I want to output the ID. This is the name, and this is equal to, we use this one, output data, and instead of okay this ID, and we use ID. And next I wanna output the unique ID also, this one, this unique ID. So we call it unique ID, and this is equal to, just like that, output data, and inside this one put the name of that table, okay, this column. Remember, you can change this one, and this is what the users who use your API use this name, but this is the name which is specific to your column name. You can change this one. For example, I use UQ for unique ID, UQID. I can use it whatever I want, and this is important. This should be the same as the column name on your table. Okay, and just like that, I'll copy this one, and I put it a few more times, and then I use, after the unique ID, we have the email. So I have to use the email. After that, we have the first name. After that, we have last name. Okay, I have to change this one also. Okay, I use different name here, first name, then last name, and here I use it differently. And after that, at the end, we have the address, and that is the data which our API will give to the user. So we fetch everything, but we have to return this data. How you can do that? Once your while is finished, you can say return. What you want to return? We want to return this users, because we put everything inside this users array. Okay, this one. Oh, make sure this is users. I have to put one S. We want to return this users. Okay, but because we have to output everything to a JSON format, so first we have to convert it to the JSON. How you can do that? That's really easy. You can use something like this, but you can't use that. You have to first convert it to a JSON. So how you can do that? Just type JSON encode. This will encode everything to JSON, and put your user's name. It will take this array and convert it to JSON. Once our API class is finished, now we have to attach this API to a variable. So we make an API. This is a variable name called API. You can call it whatever you want, and we say new API. We use this API object, okay, and we attach it to this API variable. Then we have to tell the browser this is a JSON file, not an ordinary file, not a text file, not an HTML file. This is a JSON format, and that's really easy. You just use the header, and inside the header you need to type content type, and this is equal to application/JSON. Now browser will understand this is a JSON file, not a text file. And once everything is finished, we have to echo our API so users can use it. So we echo, and now because our API, this variable, acts as an object, we can select every element inside that object. And in this case, we have a function of select. So we say from the API, I want to use the select, this function, and this will echo this one. And your PHP and save. Now let's go to our folder, refresh. There we go. We have API.php. Okay, there's an error on line 20. Let's see what is the problem. Line 20. What it says? It says unexpected token. Okay, let me check what's the problem. The problem is we didn't put this semicolon in here. You have to put it once your array is finished. Okay, let's save and run. There's another error. What is the problem? Okay, one of attribute is wrong. Let's go to our configuration file, email. Okay, this is T. Save it and refresh, and there we go. As you can see, now we have now we made an API, and it output the data from our table to a JSON format. But still, you can't understand if this is JSON. There's an extension. If you go to the Chrome extension store called JSON Viewer, okay, this extension, this JSON Viewer, all you need to do is to download this extension. Once you have done that, let me turn it on. Now if we refresh, as you can see, now you can watch it really clear. And that's the key I talked about. This is the array key, and this is equal to the ID of the ID of this table. And inside this is an array itself. Okay, inside that one we have another array with this information. So if we select the first element of this array, inside that one we have the ID, the unique ID, email, first name, last name, address, and just like that, this is the second element, third element, fourth element, and you can have as much as you want. And now you can use this API with your JavaScript or whatever programming language you like. You can also make it like, for example, if you have to send this unique ID or this email to the API, and after that it fetch the information of this exact ID. We can think about it. You can make it any kind you want. And this was how you can make an API with a PHP. I hope you guys learned something through this video. If you have any question, just let me know in the comment below. And that's it. Have a great time.